Gratitude, one of life's great ironies. What do I mean about that? Let's talk about gratitude. I know. If you haven't already rolled your eyes, you should have. If you need the bucket, it's fine. I get it. It's become one of those words, right? There's a few in the list now. One of my favourites, authenticity, emotional intelligence, resilience, thrown around, repeated so often you just want to go, yeah, got it, move on. Like, I don't want another thing I have to do. I think that's one of the worst things when people don't really understand the benefit of these things. It's like, I cannot add another thing to my list. That makes so much sense. This one, worth adding to your list and doesn't take any time. And I'm going to tell you why, particularly around the irony, right? So I keep coming back to gratitude. It's not because it's cool or spiritual or any of that stuff. Yes, it was because I saw Shawn Achor's TED Talk and realised just how useful it could be. But actually, it really changes my life every day, and not in a bullshit way, in a real way. Like, I have so much more enjoyment in my life because I'm a very grateful person. So I talk a lot about my suffering here, but I actually have a lot of joy as well, and life is very sparkly to me. Normal life. Like, I will drive down the road and just love trees and cars and people and the sky and flowers. And it's one of my top strengths, actually, gratitude. I think it might be my number one. If you're interested in learning about your VIA character strengths, a very famous fellow, Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, which he says he's the father of because he's naturally depressive. I can relate, Martin. He talks about these VIA character strengths, and generously, him and the university he's connected to, the University of Pennsylvania, they actually have many, many quizzes you can do on their site for free. One of them's called your VIA character strengths, VIA, and you can do this quiz. It's got lots of questions, and when I did mine, my number one VIA character strength was gratitude. My second one was appreciation of beauty and excellence. That has made my love for Roger Federer so much more real and understandable. He's both beautiful and excellent. Love is my third one. So this quiz, you learn about yourself, but you can also learn about how do I use these strengths. And I definitely use gratitude as a strength. So it's a neurological pathway. It creates a quality of life. It changes what I notice. And then, of course, because I'm noticing the positive, it changes the life I experience. This is making me realise I should talk a lot more about joy here, Dan. Like, I talk a lot about my challenges, but I have a really good time a lot of the time. Maybe I should say more about that. Maybe I can say more about it right now in this episode. So there are 3 reasons that gratitude matters. Forget all the cliche, right? It's simple. It makes you feel better, but it makes other people feel better. And this is the interesting one. If you're grateful, you're more likely to get the life you want. I'll say it again, like David Whyte poems. Gratitude helps create the life you want. And I'm actually only just starting to learn how to apply gratitude this way, right? This is where life gets very annoying because most of us have been taught the opposite. We've been taught I'll be grateful when I get this job or I get this relationship or I get this house or in my case, I get the Persian carpet. I now have the Persian carpet. It does bring me joy, but not as much as I would have thought, right? And that's the trick. The external stuff always has the asterisks, right? When I finally become the person I'm trying to be, my old chestnut, then I'll feel grateful. Then I'll feel abundant. Then I'll feel happy. But the more I realise and the more I wake up, life works backwards to that. It works backwards. You don't become grateful because your life improves. Your life improves when you become more grateful. Do I have evidence for this? I was going to say no, but actually I do. In a couple of different ways. Personal evidence, evidence of friends and colleagues and mentors, but also Shawn Achor, who I love and talk about here, who talks about us pushing our joy over the cognitive horizon, which is part of this topic. He actually has also just brought out a new book about beliefs and talking about the placebo effect. Even though they think it should have got less as people's understanding of science increases, the placebo effect in the last 20 to 30 years has increased. People's beliefs are key as to what actually happened. I was going to share a story, but I won't in case I need to be confidential about it. So I don't tease. What I'll say is I wanted to contact someone who's very well known in Australia, and I wanted to contact them to thank them for how good they are, but also ask their advice about something. And in a dream world, have them here, because why not, right? And I thought it's going to happen. So I contacted them and I didn't hear back. And I said to friends who were connected to them, part of how I got the connection, I haven't heard back from such and such. And they gave me a particular look, which was kind of a kindly, oh, you poor thing look, like you're so delusional, right? I said, oh, no, I think I'm going to hear back. And they were like, yes, I'm sure you will, right? Unbelievers. I said the same thing to my husband, how I hadn't heard, and he gave me the identical facial look around, oh, that's nice, dear, that you think you're going to hear, right? But I did hear back, and the person is going to do something with me, from a conversation to a podcast interview, but any of those options I'm up for. It's a total thrill, right? Why am I telling you this? Because I believed it would happen. And I think if you act as if something's already there, or if you're grateful for it, it can help it occur. And I don't mean like The Secret. Like The Secret, the book The Secret, I get it's very famous and I get people love manifestation. And I don't mind the idea of manifestation, but I also think it can flip on people. And if they're having a hard time, it can seem like, well, they're not doing enough, or people get cancer and then think, why do I deserve this? I don't mean any of that, right? It's not about pretending everything's wonderful. It's not about saying that bad things don't happen, but it's noticing all the beautiful things that are happening all the time in amongst that. I had Jonah Primo on here from the Over-Examined Live podcast, and he has actually done a recent episode on gratitude, which you might like to watch. Very sexy, he does fantastic graphics. If you watch the visual, he speaks well and he's concise and beautiful. And he has just created a gratitude page on his free Patreon site, so you can actually work with other people around reminding yourself about what there is to be grateful for. So we all have difficulties. We all have real concerns. I have a lot of made-up concerns, and that causes me a lot of difficulty. But aside from that confusion, there's a lot of beautiful things happening all the time, particularly if you've got such a blessed life like I do. And if we don't train ourselves to see them, we'll often miss them. We will miss them because our primal brains, our cave person brains are not set up for that. They're set up to look for lack and threat. We have a terrible thing as human beings called, adaptive hedonism. I'll get the right word and put it in. We have a terrible thing where we just look at all the time, what's next. And that comes from the most basic part of our brain, but that part of the brain is still very there and very strong. So you have to actually override it. You have to consciously choose being grateful and happy. So my coach Lockie talks about the idea that being happy where you are creates a sense of abundance. And this is a really key point. This is the thing about gratitude that is the thing I wanted you to most get. Yes, practice it if you haven't already. Yes, bring it in and I'll tell you how to. But actually, if you're very good at feeling like you're already abundant, more abundance comes. So this was where I learned a fantastic lesson. I've shared about this fellow before on Instagram, the upward spiral, and I'll share the link here. Abundance tends to create more abundance. So he made the comment, a lot of us have what they call thermostats, for instance, around money. And we'll think, my thermostat is I'll always have enough. But I haven't been able to shift the thermostat yet to I'll always have more than enough, right? I'll always have abundance. I mean, I'm grateful that I'll always have enough versus I'm always broke. I like that I've got that one versus the other. But I'd like to have it that I can create real abundance, right? And it doesn't need to be around money. But the trick that I got that I hadn't been able to get until I spoke with Lockie or listened to this fellow, when they said, if you want to create more abundance, I thought, well, how do you do that? How do you do that out of a sense of lack? You don't actually do it out of a sense of lack. You do it out of being grateful for what you've got right now. So if I look at my current circumstance and really revel in the beauty of that, and of course it is pretty beautiful because I've spent my whole life trying to create houses and businesses and families that, I'm 52. I've had some success, some very hard-won success. That was actually one idea for a byline for this podcast, was hard-won lessons lightly shared. I quite like that. I just looked at Dan because I'm like, what do you think, Dan? In the middle of my episode, of course, right? But yeah, it's kind of true, right? They're hard-won lessons, but I try and share them as lightly as I can, even though I'm not actually that light a person. You can probably tell. So if you notice what you've already got, it creates more. Now, it might not be money or possessions or whatever, but it can be opportunities, connection, joy. It's such a cruel thing, right? It's actually the great irony. If you can feel like life is already working with you instead of against you, it's so annoying because you have to do it backwards, right? If you want to have a baby, everyone tells you have to relax or take a holiday or not want the baby. I can tell you, when Andy and I were trying to have who turned out to be Sam, it was not relaxing. At one point, my husband said to me, you have to look like you're enjoying this for me to be able to do my job. The poor thing. That's what they all say, have a holiday. And we ended up doing the ironic thing. I can't even help you with a better story because I said, listen, I've had enough. Let's just have a break. I don't want to do any more of this for now. We had a break. And of course, I quite quickly felt pregnant. How cruel is that, man? You have to do it back to front, right? If you want love, like I have, you have to love yourself first, the very thing I've been banging on about here. If you want happiness, you have to appreciate what's already there. It's a very mean system, but it does seem to be how things work, and it's certainly how it works for me. When I am most pleased, most grateful, most free, I come up with my best ideas, the best stuff happens, I have the best stuff with other people. I've always had a natural tendency towards gratitude, and I'm grateful for that, right? Meta gratitude. I think I got it from my parents. So my dad has always been a lover of life and very vocal about appreciating things. And he's a bit like me, likes dramatic things, shows and travel and exciting things and glitz and glamour. But my mum, equally or more so, has been someone who always notices beauty, right? And in simple things, in people, in nature, in small moments, in little glimmers, right? And I've got the combo. I have both things. I love a great show and I love a small flower, right? So I'm really grateful. Also, my mum said actually that she thinks that I've got the most gratitude of the children because I grew up when mum and dad had no money. I don't know if that's true, but I do really notice when things are good. So thank goodness, right? Because as you know, my mind can also be a very difficult neighbourhood, but gratitude has become more than a nice idea. It has been largely an antidote for me, and it's a daily joy that the more I practice it, the more available it becomes. It is a muscle, gratitude. It's a little bit like Alvin shared a great line on LinkedIn recently that I said I was going to steal but trademark to him, and it was, what was it, Alvin? Kindness is less of a trait and more of a moral choice. Forgive me if I've paraphrased wrongly, but that was so wonderful. It's a bit like gratitude, right? Kindness is less of a trait and more of a chosen choice of morality. I've said it different that time, same idea. Gratitude is a choice, and the more you do it, the more you get to do it, and the more your whole life changes flavour, right? So I notice things all day now. I notice I'm literally looking at a flower in the studio that I love the colour of. When I'm at home, I notice the trees. Yes, I live in a tree house, so I have a great advantage there. But I look out the window and see the trees. I feel the warmth of the blanket I'm under. Dan just made me an awesome cup of Rooibos tea, which I always called Rooibos, and got in big trouble from my South African friends. They said Roy, like the boy's name, Rooibos. Shout out, XO in the city, leaf tea, wonderful. With honey, have it black if you don't want the South Africans yelling at you. Didn't think I could get off the milk, but I love it black. So a good cup of tea can change my day. I will literally take a sip on camera to prove I am having my Rooibos. A good cup of tea can change my day. Of course, my mother did teach me that tea solves everything, as every good mother from an English, Scottish, German background does. If my curly hair's behaving, I'm delighted. It's behaving at the moment because of my hairdresser, Jenny at Aoki, doing lots of free ads today. If Luna is asleep beside me, my beautiful dog, I just feel like all is well in the world. And I actually have to stop and look at her and go, your beautiful dog is beside you. Life is well, right? A lovely text from a friend, a video from my friend Betty of her geese, which is the happiest thing in the world. The sound of birds, not the UK birds that go tweet, 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 but the ones here that go rah, rah, rah. Love that joke on an old video. The way the light falls through the leaves outside my house, the way the wind blows through a curtain, you know, I could say tiny things. They're not tiny. They're beautiful. I suppose they're ordinary, but there's nothing ordinary about them. And because I look for them, I find things more and more and more. Rick Hanson talks about this beautifully, right? Our limbic system, or our primal system, our brains are like Velcro for negative experiences. We hold on to them, and Teflon for positive ones. Negative experiences stick and positive experiences slide off. He actually talks about if we want to have more joy, we actually have to help our brains absorb it. Take a moment to let a good feeling sink in, 15 or 20 seconds. Go, oh, that was nice, that compliment was nice, that text was nice, that flower was beautiful, and actually stop, because our brains will naturally move on. The hedonistic treadmill was what I wanted to say earlier. So one of the simplest ways I know how to do this thing and focus on the good is gratitude practice.